Okay, so now we're on self-responsibility. This is one of the more masculine energies behind self-esteem, and it's important to know because when you start tapping into that energy, you're gonna feel kind of like a little a little bit of strength. And as you begin to get familiar with those energies, when you're opening up your heart and you're letting go of the baggage of the past, you'll be introduced to them. So that's why I bring it up. But I will read to you the definition of self-responsibility. The ability to respond, take ownership, communicate, find meaning in your life, to decide and choose to engage with practical accountability. And so the goal is to create some framework for change, some understanding of what you are in control of and what you're not in control of. And so this is so important because it empowers you, right? The minute we can identify that something's not going right in our life and we can name it and take some sort of ownership in it, then it brings the power back to us and allows us to actually change it. And so this is kind of the implementation step. And so acceptance is like identifying, responsibility is implementing. And so you cannot continue to change anything in your life if you don't take the responsibility to do so. And so what it looks like not to take responsibility, well, it looks like blaming people all the time. It looks like not taking any ownership, being a part of a group project and just not even showing up to it. It looks like not taking care of things that you own or taking care of your body. Self-care is a pretty big thing because it seems as if our society has forgotten what that looks like. We're stuck in a lot of masculine energy right now where we're focused on, competition instead of collaboration. But what I would say is that when you realize what your priorities are and your values are, it allows you to identify what you need, what your needs are. And when your needs are identified, then you can meet them. And I have this body. Well, if I'm responsible for this body, then I'm responsible for the health, the mind, and the spiritual health of the body. And so I have to show up to take care of myself, even when there's certain things I just don't feel in the mood for. And so I bring that up because it's the same way in relationships. You are responsible for your side in the relationship, and there's a give and take, an energy exchange to everything. And so if I show up to a relationship where I'm constantly just taking energy from and I'm not giving anything back, I'm not really being responsible for my interaction in the relationship, and I'm not, showing up as my best. When you constantly take things like energy, or, you're always calling a friend a vent and using them towards your will, what happens is that it creates this lack in you where there's not enough because you're becoming this black hole of energy, and there's not a feedback loop at that point. And so a feedback loop is important because it reminds you that there's this give and take, right? Like you put something in and then you draw stuff out. And the relationship should be the same with yourself than it is with other people. And this is a way that we can start to weed out or evaluate what relationships in our life are positive and healthy and what relationships are not really adding to us or promoting the direction that our life is calling us to move into. And I'm talking a little generally when I'm mentioning like what direction we need to move into, because we'll be covering all of this later in. I'm just trying to give you some framework to base it off of. But as we can start to come into our body, and these self-esteem exercises will allow you to drop into it, we can fully begin to feel our feelings. And our feelings will let us know if we're moving in the right direction or not. Our story, the brain, the chatter that goes on up there is based on our old experiences. And so a lot of times we'll experience things that we don't have a story for. And that's when it's important to be able to listen and hear your body. Dr. Joe Dispenza, he says that thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body. And then we have a language of our spirit, which I believe is our intuition. And so the idea with integrity and self-esteem is that all of those are in alignment with each other. And so if you're just focusing on the intellectual side, you're going to be, leaving your body and your spiritual side behind. And if you're just focusing on your feelings, you're really going to be limiting yourself by the stories that your brain's telling from the past. Because we experience, just a small section of life, and there's so much that humans don't know. And so I think that when we're stuck in masculine energy, we get stuck in that cycle of trying to intellectualize everything. And the idea of self-responsibility is finding some balance between those three, and then interacting in other relationships with those three areas of you, right? There's a spiritual connection, there's an emotional connection, and then there's an intellectual connection. And so there are people in my life that fill different needs, right? But when I'm looking for a partner, like a mate, I would like them to fill all of those needs, because my mate will be someone that I spend the majority of my time with, and I need them to support me, and I need to be able to support them, because that's the feedback loop that I want, that I'm looking for. That's a feedback loop that's very healthy for me. And so part of this self-responsibility is, I'm talking a lot about identifying and evaluating, because that's where it all starts. You have to identify and evaluate. Identify what you want, identify what you don't want, and then evaluate, what you're doing in your life to create more of that, and what you're not doing to change it. And those create stepping stones for you to work off of. Let me see. Another good example, before I finish, about self-responsibility is enabling. And so in AA, there's this common reference to whose side of the street are you on. There's my side of the street, and then there's your side of the street. And I'm responsible for my side of the street. And I would even argue that I'm not responsible for my side of the street. I'm responsible for my house and my driveway. That's it. You know what I mean? There's other people on my side of the street I'm not responsible for. And so when you are judging other people or taking their inventory, that's another AA term, where you're just basically going through them, telling them or identifying all of their negative traits or qualities or areas that they need to work on. It's just a distraction. It's a distraction from your own thoughts and feelings to be focusing on someone else. And so that's a great reminder for you, if you start doing that, to kind of check back in, why am I doing this? I've heard many times that people focus on other people because they don't want to hear what's going on in their mind. They just don't want it to be quiet. And the idea of self-responsibility is that you can be quiet. You can just be with yourself, because you've shown up in every action of your life willing and able to deal with the consequences and the gifts of how you are participating and interacting with the world. So when you're not sure of who's responsible for what, you can think about whose side of the street it's on. A lot of times from abusive families, or families that have addiction involved in them, or alcoholism, however you want to say it, this enabling behavior comes up. And I talked a little bit about it as far as the parents in the last video, where one parent is completely emotionally unavailable and the other one has to compensate significantly. And that's when you get this enabling idea, energy, where the mom is not just taking care of her side of the street, but she's coming over to your side and she's doing your side of the street too. And so what happens in relationships like that is that you grow up, or you get older, or you start to experience life, and that's what you're expecting. You're expecting people to take responsibility for your shit, and that's not healthy at all, because in return, with that feedback loop, you will start to clean up other people's mess, and that's not healthy, because that's none of your business, and that's not really what you're being called to do. You have to refocus, recenter, and come back to your body to move forward with it.